You will find in the description box below a link to all of the previous videos relating to the YouTube hop and the tutorials and the walkthrough of this project. And then also there is a link to our Chana store, craftycity.com, and a coupon code that if you enter that in, you will receive a discount on any kits or products that you purchase. So that coupon code will go until Mother's Day of 2022. So don't miss that. I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel and give me that thumbs up. And just a reminder to watch my tutorials all the way through before you actually work on your project. I do make changes here and there, and I do some troubleshooting as we go, so I do recommend that. And with that being said, let's get started. It was not my original plan, but I decided that I would make this a traveler's notebook style journal with the cording and the buttons on the spine. It would have been really cute, but I realized that by the time I punched the holes top and bottom for the cording, that my signatures would not fit. They were just too tall, and they were already inked and sewed and things glued onto the pages, so I couldn't redo that. But I wasn't willing to give up the buttons and the cording, so I decided to make that a decorative element of the journal. So you may use whatever cording that you wish, as long as it's thin enough that two strands will fit within one buttonhole of whichever buttons you choose to use. I have here some waxed cording from Hobby Lobby that's found in their jewelry section. And the buttons I chose, I just pulled them out of my button jar here. And the largest one is 7/8 of an inch in diameter. I don't think you're going to want too much larger than that. And then the smaller, and oh, the largest button, I'm using one with 4 holes. I just think that's going to look cool. And then the 2 smaller buttons are about a 1/2 inch in diameter, and they are just 2-hole buttons. And then the cord I cut, and it's probably too much. I just, when I was cutting, I just want to make sure I had enough. But each strand is about 18 inches long. Though as we go along, you'll see if I have too much, and you can adjust accordingly if you make your own. So I've made some pencil marks here where my holes are going to be, and what I did is I took my ruler and measured from the edge of each side of that cardboard spine 1/4 of an inch. So 1/4 of an inch from the left, 1/4 from the right, and then I flipped it around from the bottom and measured 1/4 of an inch from there. And so you have 1/4 of an inch from all 3 sides. Then you're going to want to flip it around to the top of your journal and do the same thing. Now I'm just going to measure here from the bottom hole to the top hole on the right side and make sure it is going to be the same distance as the marks on the left. And so that is looking good. Then I'm going to measure the distance between the holes on the bottom there and then on the top to make sure that is an equal distance as well. So I'm going to use my crocodile, and I don't want a big punch. I'm just going to use my smaller hole punch, and I just really hope this goes through both of the fabrics the way I want it to. If it doesn't, I'll have to try something else. So I think I'm going to do this off camera because it's kind of awkward. But basically, you can see what I'm doing. I'm just punching the hole through there, but I need to be able to see where I'm punching. So I'm going to do this off camera, and I'll be right back. So I went ahead and added the eyelets as well. And I did notice that one corner of my cardboard spine was a little bit thicker than the other 3, and that's just the nature of cardboard, but everything's in there and it works. And if it's not pretty, it's going to be covered up with a piece of fabric anyway, so I'm not too worried about that as long as everything's in there nice and tight and secure. And then I also did test the eyelets on a scrap piece of cardboard and fabric to make sure that the eyelets would fit and to know what settings to use on my crocodile. All right, so I found my needle and I found my little Tim Holtz tool, this pokey tool, I guess. I don't know what to call it. And I went ahead and found my center of my spine this way and also the center this way. And then I took this button and I found the center mark there and I just scooted it up until these 4 holes were in the center. And then I just took my pencil and marked a little dot where the holes go. And so I'm going to take my tool here. This is my Tim Holtz tool. And I'm going to use this to poke a hole all the way through. And so I hope I can do this without making a big mess. All right, so now let's see if I can do this without confusing myself. So we're going to go down through the top right hole from the top part of the spine, go through the hole only. And just so I don't confuse myself, I'm going to stick this through there. Okay? And then we're going to go up through the bottom right. And then also the bottom right hole of the button. And then we're going to go down through the top left hole of the button and also the top left hole through the spine. Okay. And don't worry about tightening things up. We'll tighten everything up later. And then we're going to go up through the hole on the bottom left. Just the hole only, not the button. Doesn't want to go through. There we go. That's because I got it through the wrong one. Hang on. Okay, just through the bottom left hole only. Okay, so it's going to be, your thread's going to be diagonal like that. And just so you don't get your threads mixed up, go ahead and stick that one through the bottom left hole of your eyelet. Okay, and then you're going to thread your second string. Let's see. And you're going to go down through the top left hole only. And just so, again, so we're not confused, you're going to put that through the top left eyelet hole. Or, you know, I'm doing this, I'm saying the top, but it doesn't matter. I know I've got my book this way, but it doesn't matter top or bottom on this part. And then you're going to go through up through the bottom left button and the cardboard hole. You're going to go up through both. and then you're going to go down through both the button and the cardboard on the top right, and then you're going to come up through the bottom right hole only, not the button. You just want to go through that cardboard only. Okay? And now you can take these out of the eyelet holes, because I just did that just so I wouldn't get the strings mixed up or confused. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. Okay, so now it's attached to my spine, and now for the threads here, you know, all I'm going to do on this is I'm just going to put these two ends together, and I'm just going to go up from one side. Hopefully the buttons you picked out have holes big enough to fit both pieces of thread, like so. And you want to make sure that your threads don't get twisted around. You want to make sure the right one's on the right and the left is on the left, and then stick them from the top to underneath, like so. Oh, I think I'm going to pull it to about right there. We'll see how it goes. If it's going to flip up like that, maybe I need to poke a hole through the binding. Alright, so I did end up having to sew that button in, and so I'm going to show you how I did that. And this one's a little tricky because we're poking both strings through the same hole and trying not to catch the other thread as we go in. So on the measurements on that, I've got about a fingertip away from my button. It's going to be different for yours depending on the size of the button that you're using and the holes and everything. So I can't really give you a measurement on that, except that it's about a fingertip away. And you just center that and then mark your lines where you want your holes to be, and then poke your hole through there with your tool. And so what I want to do is I want to go through this. I'm going to do the right side first, and I got a little something there. And I'm going to go through the bottom first without the button. And I wish I would have, I don't think I got that spine glued on good enough. It's starting to come loose. I'm just pulling it so tight, I guess. And then I'm going to come up through the top hole. So coming up through the top hole, and then coming up through what's going to be the top hole of the button. And then I'm going to go through the bottom, and then through the bottom hole again, and I'm going to try not to catch that thread. And then I'm going to go through the top hole, and again try not to catch the previous threads. And my cardboard is a little weak in that spot for some reason on this one. So hang on, I've got to get this. There we go. And then I just want to go through the hole only, not the button. Okay, so now I've got to try and pull this tight because I've got a bit of a weak spot in the cardboard, which happens sometimes. I mean, it's not the strongest type of paper. Just going to add a little bit of glue there. And then I'm going to do it all over again with this other side. Now that I got them all sewn in, I can string this through. And just, you know, for safe, just in case, I'm going to go ahead and get some glue here in my holes and in the thread. And then I'm going to take each side and make sure they're pulled tight. And I'm going to tie this in a knot. And yeah, I didn't need all that thread. I didn't actually need to double it up. I think I could have gotten away with at least 3-4 inches less. So I did want to jump in here and mention that you could make this a traveler's notebook style journal if you want to. What you would do is first you would string your buttons through the spine just like I showed you. You'd have your cords dangling from the buttons here. You just want to move those out of the way. Then you would cover the inside of your journal here, and you could do it just like I've done it here. You could use all paper, all fabric, however you wish. Then once that's covered, then you would punch your holes and set your eyelets just as I showed you before. Then you're ready to string those cords through the eyelet holes, and then you would just bring them around to the center and tie them in a knot. And then you're ready to slide your signatures in place. So I have my design papers adhered to the inside covers. I did stitch around the edges first and also added some ink. And then I've centered the quote on the right side and pretty much centered the rows on the left side, so you can see there how I've cut the paper. And I think it's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to show you how to sew your 3-hole pamphlet stitch and enter your signatures into the journal. And I had some technical difficulties with this part of the tutorials, so I'm going to be jumping in here and there and filling in the blanks. So I'm starting off with a template, and this is a piece of the craft paper, and it is 8 inches long and 1 1/8 inches wide. And I found the center and drew a line. Then I came in from each end at 3/8 of an inch and drew a line. And then I came in 3/8 of an inch from each side and drew some lines. So now I have 6 intersections, and at each intersect I drew a little circle, and those are where I'm going to poke my holes. Excuse me. And then, okay, the white does not like focusing. Okay, so now I'm going to find the center of my signature, and these signature pages are not exactly the same size as my journal, but the measurements that I'm going to be giving you are all correct, okay? So let's see here. I want to find the center of my signature, and I recommend doing a pencil. I just grabbed this pen, but you're going to mark at the center on the fold of your signature, okay? If you can see that. I drew a little circle on the fold of my signature. And then I'm going to take my template, and then I also marked a T here for the top. Now, your signatures may not have a top and bottom yet, but from now on, this is going to be deemed the top of my signature. So if you have things glued in or sewed in or whatever, top and bottom of your signature, make sure this is on the top. And then I'm going to line up this centered line on my template with that line or that dot on the fold. And then where this line is here, I'm going to draw a little mark. And where this one is here, I'm going to draw a little mark. And this is where I'm going to be poking the holes in my signature. So I've already poked the holes in this first signature, and now I'm going to take out this center paper and use it as a template for the second signature. And I think that's just going to be easier than figuring out where all the holes are and everything. I just need to make sure that the top of the paper is towards the top and the bottom's the bottom. Make sure that my holes are all going to be even on both signatures. And I'm just using my ruler here to press everything down nice and snug in the fold. And I'm just placing my paper here, and then I'm going to punch all the holes. So now I'm going to put this back in here. Okay, so I have my holes poked through both of my signatures. So I glued the template onto the fabric that's going to cover my spine, and then I went ahead and poked the holes at all of the circles that I marked here at the intersections, and I'm going to sew my signatures directly onto this piece of fabric and the template and all. Alright, so I have enough twine here that's about 2.5 times the length of my spine. So now is the time to decide if you have a particular order in which you want your signatures to be in the book. Also, you want to make sure that if there's a top and bottom to your signatures, you want to make sure that your top is on the top and the bottom's on the bottom. So the first thing that you're going to do for a signature stitch is you're going to go down through the center, up through the top, down through the bottom, and up through the center, okay? So really that's all there is to it. So going down through the center, I'm going to leave about this much of a tail. And then I'm going to put this one on the right side. I think that's easier for me when I'm putting my signatures to go right to left, but that's just a personal thing. And then it's just sewing straight through the fabric and the paper there. And then I'm going to come up through the top. And sometimes your needle wants to go, if your needle kind of goes in sideways, you're not catching all your papers. So you just want to make sure that you go through and catch every single one. And I don't know why I'm having a hard time. It's probably just getting too late. Okay. Okay, then you're going to go all the way down to the bottom. Now, I think the trickiest part of this is you're going back through the center and you don't want to catch the thread that's already strung through there. So try not to catch those threads. And then I just go back through and I just make sure all the threads are pulled taut and they're not, you don't want them loose in there. So we kind of started off this way. And then came through the bottom and then up through the center. Okay, so all those are tight. And then you're going to want to make sure that you've got one side of the tail on one side and one on the other of this center string. And then you're just going to tie that into a knot. And you might be able to get away with just that one tie, but I'm going to do it at the double. This isn't that thick of a twine. And then you can just, you know, cut those as long or as short as you want. Some people like them dangling down and they add beads and little charms to that if they want to. I think I've only done that once. I usually just cut them short like that. I don't mind the little pieces sticking out there in the middle. So that's it. So then you go ahead and do the same thing on the left side for the other signature. And that's all there is to it. Easy, huh? So I have my signature sewed to the fabric, and I'm just going to double check here and make sure there's no loose threads or anything, and that everything's tight and secure within the pamphlet stitch, and make sure none of the papers are going the wrong way. I'm pretty sure I checked that before, but just double checking. So it's looking good. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue the spine or that fabric onto the spine. I'm going to line that paper up with the edges of my spine and glue that on. And you won't see it in the editing, but I did take that tape backing off that was holding those strings down on my spine. So now I'm just going to use my collage medium to brush those edges, not the frayed part, but just the edges that go over the covers of the book. I'm not going to glue down inside of that gap that's in between the spine and the covers. There's just really no need for that. And yeah, so just brushing on the collage medium there and attaching my spine or my signatures to the journal. So for some reason that collage medium just did not adhere to that particular piece of fabric well. So I'm just you're going to be using my glue here to better adhere that to the covers. So after all that, I really didn't like the way that the gap between the spine and the covers were showing through this fabric. And maybe it was just the type of fabric I was using, I don't know, but I didn't like it. This was still somewhat wet, so I ended up ripping that whole piece out with the fabric and the signatures and everything. And it was still sort of wet, so I didn't have too much trouble. And then what I did is I took a piece of scrap fabric from my cover and I placed that over the spine and over the covers. Now, this is a new journal I'm starting, and the spine is a lot wider than the one we're working on now. And so let's just imagine, okay, that our spine is in there, and the fabric needs to go at least a half an inch over the covers there, around there. You don't want it to go past the point of where your fraying is beginning, because I didn't want that showing through the fray. And then uh, I, cut it short. It didn't need to be full length of the journal, so it's probably around 8 inches tall, the fabric. Now, uh, if you're following along and watching this tutorial, like I suggested all the way through before you actually start anything, what you could do is before you place your papers on, you can do this piece of fabric right here and go about a half an inch to an inch or so onto your inside covers, and then glue your inside covers on, and then you can glue that piece on over your spine. Okay, I forgot to mention that I did end up having to use a new piece of fabric and template to sew my signatures in. So I re-sewed everything into the new fabric, which I use this fabric here. It's a, oops, got a string there. It's a type of muslin fabric, I think. And you can see here in the journal that I've only glued that into there, and so the frayed parts will still lift up there. And so I think it came out really nice. So that's what I would have done differently. And I mean, if we're technical, if I would have done it differently, it would have been a traveler style or traveler's notebook style journal. But I'm not really crying over it. I'm really not. I'm still happy with the way my journal came out, and I don't think there's any mistakes. I think it's different. We're doing things different, and I like to experiment and try new things, and it doesn't bother me, because I learn that way. That's how I learn, and I'm fairly new to making junk journals, so this has been a fun experience. I have to say the whole process has been fun, even when I've been ripping off the glue. I'm taking that back. So resewing the signatures was not as fun, but hey, it worked. And so just to show you the journal again, like I said, I think it came out beautiful, and it's just different. It's not a mistake. It's just different. And it absolutely works the way I did it. So, and in the long run, I don't think that's the overall make it or break it of the journal. It still has this gorgeous cover with a pretty spine. I love the seam binding closure, and I love how the signatures came out. So that will be part 3. We're going to talk about the closure here and some of the elements that I use to decorate my pages. So I would invite you to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you'll be notified of those upcoming videos. And the thumbs up, you guys. Oh, you guys don't know how much I appreciate those thumbs up. It really means a lot to me when you do that. So that would be great. And I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.